Okay, we're going to carry on here with Romans chapter 3. Do another segment here, and then I've still got about 3 hours left. I can take another nap here before I get going. We left off with verse 11. There is none that understandeth, there is none that seeketh after God. The previous video, made it clear that we don't seek God, God seeks us. And that started in the garden. So let's go on here. They are all gone out of the way, they are all together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre, with their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood, destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. We have to look at this through God's eyes. This is how God sees men in our unregenerate state. When we, and even though, like, in the last video, the unbelievers do good deeds, but when we compare ourselves to God, we fall way short. And we're going to get to that here right now. Let's just keep going on here, and this will really define what's going on here. Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it saith to them who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and the whole world may be guilty before God. Again, who's under the law? Everybody. The Jews had the written law, but we learned that God wrote his law upon the hearts of the Gentiles. The Gentiles who don't have the law do by nature the things contained in the law. Cain knew it was wrong to kill his brother, because God had written that law upon Cain's heart. And for this reason, it says that every mouth may be stopped and the whole world may become guilty before God. In other words, don't try to justify what you do. Don't, there's no justification. There's no way of justifying our sin. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. This is a real key verse here in this section, because it's through the law that we know that we're sinners. God said, "Thou shalt not," and it's when we break that law that we become guilty of and aware of what sin is. But now the righteousness of God without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Jesus Christ, unto all and up on all them that believe, for there is no difference. Doesn't say the elect, doesn't say the chosen, it says all. All means all. I'm not allowed to redefine terms here. Because why? For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Sin. What is sin? We think of sin as individual acts of disobedience. And that is not entirely a false or untrue statement. But in reality, what separates man from God, we see in this verse right here, verse 23, that we've come short of the glory of God. In other words, God is at this level, and it doesn't matter how close we get to his perfection, his righteousness, we still fall short of who he is, because we are less than perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our sin. David wrote, and I think it was Psalm 51, that he was conceived in sin. And why? And as we get into this later on, we're going to get to it, but I'll go to it right now real quick. Romans chapter 5. We inherited the sin nature of our father Adam. It's been passed from generation to generation, and this is what has separated us from God. It's not those, listen, those individual acts of sin that we commit are due to the fact that we have a sin nature. As a matter of fact, this word sin right here is a noun, not a verb. It's a noun. And it's actually an archery term. It means to miss a mark on the way. So it doesn't matter how close you get to the mark, unless you hit it dead center, you miss it. And you might as well miss it by 100,000 miles as to miss it by just a centimeter or a millimeter or whatever a gigameter, I don't know, the tiniest. Missing it is missing it, and that is the whole problem with men, is we are short of God's perfection and God's glory. And this is why God had to do what he did. Verse 24, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God has set forth to be a propitiation, which is just a $25 word that means price, or it's the price that he paid, through faith in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past, through the forbearance of God, to declare, I say, at this time his righteousness, that he might be just and the justifier of him which does what? Verse 26, believes in Jesus. Period. Where is boasting then? It is excluded. By what law? Of works? No, but by the law of faith. Now listen, so Paul's establishing that there are two separate laws here. There's the Mosaic law, the Ten Commandments, but now we have what he's calling the law of faith. Okay? And he says right here that because everyone is saved or made righteous the same way, there's no way anyone can boast about their righteousness, because it's not theirs. It's the righteousness of Christ, and it justifies those who believe in him. Verse 28, therefore we conclude. What does it mean to conclude? It means it's the end of the matter. The end of the matter is this, that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. Period. Is he the God of the Jews only? Is he not the God of the Gentiles also? Yes, of the Gentiles. Seeing it is one God which shall justify the circumcision by faith and the uncircumcision through faith. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. We establish the law. Which law? The law of faith. God, that's the law that's been established now. This is the New Testament covenant, which, and actually salvation's always been by faith. Always. And we're going to get into that in chapter 4. Thanks for watching, and God bless.